As you know, we were forced to close the registrations for today's side event when it reached 90 attendees mark. But you know, for free of charge side events, you can expect from 40 to 60% of attendance based on your registration number. And today I have to say that we already successfully passed the lower mark. We've got 40 people of 90 who was registered actually itself. Some words, not to take too much of your time, to be straight. I'm glad to say thank you for coming and for joining us. Today's session is really very special. It's combined of the knowledge sharing session organized under the Connect to Scale project, which is funded by European Union and aiming to connect people, startup founders from not so early stage startups who are looking for their scaling, their angels who backed them sometimes before and still keeping in their portfolio, and mid-stage venture capital funds who are looking for rising stars and skyrocketing startup teams. So we are bringing, fixing the gap between early stage and mid stage, between angel investors and VC fund managers. And this is why we are all here. We love to share our knowledge. I want to start with a very brief words about the first part of today, the venture debt topics. What to expect? First of all, two very practical, brief, and energizing keynotes from our friends from Flashpoint Venture Capital Fund. Tom, please show up. And from the point of view as a venture capitalists, and followed by a keynote by Pavels from SEB Banka. They just unveiled their new product for Baltic states, venture debt, and the entire facility, as far as I remember, is 20 million for now. I can't say that anyone can expect that to have in their bank accounts, obviously, because the conditions are quite tricky, but let's keep it to the keynote by Pavel. And very quick, brief, and focused fireside chat. As you know, I don't want to have just a regular dialogues. I want to arrange some battle between three kinds of people: venture capitalists, financial providers, and startup founders. Santa, you're here with us today, so please be prepared for the hot dialogue. And this all will be followed by a very, very special pitch session of Latban. And today, all 8 founders and startups are from my own personal angel pipeline. I didn't invest in any of those 8 startups, but based on results of TechChill conference, I hope to invest into at least one of them. That's it. Thank you for joining Flashpoint Capital, an introduction to venture debt.
So, start off by telling you a little bit about what Flashpoint is. We're an international tech investor, headquartered out of London, but with offices all over Eastern Europe, and we're focusing on founders from CE and Israel. Over time, we've kind of tried to expand our product line. So we started out as a pure VC in 2012. Investing in B2B SaaS, tech companies, and that's still very much like a part of the business, still the core of the business. And they're looking at companies with around 1 million of ARR plus, again, tech companies. The team that I'm on is the venture debt team. We were opened and started in 2019. We're looking slightly later stage with a broader mandate, still focused on tech, but again, looking companies maybe more like 3 million ARR plus. And then we've also started a secondary team targeting even later in the cycle, around 10 mil plus, Series B plus. And this is actually the first fund in Flashpoint to invest directly into Riga. They bought some secondary in Printify, which we're very excited about. they seem to have loved the deal, so we're very happy. And yeah, that's what we're doing. So what is venture debt? Hopefully some of you knew before coming, but if not, here it is, and here's how we do it. There are a few different ways to slice it, as some do it without the warrants, but for us, we do it with. It's usually a 3-year loan, up to kind of 4 years, let's say, and effectively operates like a mortgage, where you pay a blend of interest and principal over the course of each month. And generally speaking, it's supposed to be flexible. It's supposed to be adjusted to what you as founders want. So if you guys are looking for tranches, interest-only periods, etc., then that's something that we should bake in and speak about in the term sheet. And then we also have a warrant on top of it, which is a small equity kicker. It's usually around, say, 10% of the total loan amount. And what this exists for us is a way to align us with founders so that we are incentivized to see the company continue to grow. That's what we want. We want like, ooh, sorry. Oh. Yeah, we want to see the company continue to grow. And if we have a financial incentive to see that happen, then that's something we want to encourage. We want to help you with fundraising and help you to continue to grow the business. As for kind of why debt versus kind of a more traditional metric, a more traditional fundraising strategy like equity, well, the answer is don't take either or, take both. But the reason you take debt is that it's cheaper, especially as your company grows. Equity investors, in return for the higher risk that they're facing, do get a much higher return. And as a result, for a founder, it's cheaper for you to take venture debt, as shown in the graph. Use cases of venture debt, as we see them. There's quite a few here, but I guess the main ones: protection from dilution. While we do have a small warrant stake in the company, it's much less than what you would see from a comparable equity investment. So comparatively, as part of a 5 million round, if you take $1 million of debt, you're going to be facing reduced dilution, so it's useful there. Second option would be kind of around profitability. If you're looking to bridge to profitability, debt can be a good way to get there, especially in the current climate where equity markets are tougher. And then the last two options are really M&A and more recently also secondary as well. So obviously if you guys have seen a company that's struggling in the current environment, of which there are many, and want to add directly to revenues in an inorganic fashion, add to bottom line, debt can be a good way to do that, again, avoiding dilution. And then secondary as well, we've recently completed a deal in the US, actually, where we bought effectively direct secondary in the company, but we did it by financing the founders through venture debt, and the founder was buying back the secondary. This was good because it was a profitable company, and we're happy to do it. Obviously, it helps the founder because they're, again, claiming back more of the company so that when they do exit, they'll have a higher return, which is great. So I guess onto the kind of meat of the presentation. From my side, as I said, I'm an analyst, so what I do every day is look at startups and try to determine whether or not we want to invest in them. And so I guess from my perspective, these are the things that would help me and that would incentivize, well, make it more likely that I take you to IC and that we invest in you. So the reason for the photo is that I would liken like making an investment to jumping off a cliff. And there's a few reasons for that. First things first, you want to know where the rocks are. And that's really about data quality. So as a founder, I know sort of at the very early stages when you're sort of just starting to get revenues, it doesn't seem as important to build a sort of financial model, to build out your financials and track your KPIs, like cohorts, et cetera. But it really pays dividends later on. Because if you can provide these things, that's all we need. We want to see like, okay, sure, we know like no company is perfect. Like no startup we've ever looked at has been perfect. But as long as we know where the rocks are, we can identify and understand the risk, then we can be more comfortable making the investment. The second point is speed. You don't want to be standing on that ledge for too long. You want to jump, otherwise you're going to chicken out. And it really is true. Time kills all deals. I think almost every deal we've done, we've probably gotten to a term sheet within sort of 3 weeks. And it's really because, A, you have less time to think about the issues. You get to focus on and embrace the story. So for that, really the key is like, A, have your data ready. Make it like easy and quick to access. So like, don't wait like a week to send it. Send it straight away, because that keeps us engaged. A really good point as well, don't just use email. Feel free to go to like WhatsApp, Telegram, whatever messaging system it is that helps you communicate faster. That's better because, again, a stronger relationship between us is always good. That's going to make it more likely we invest. And it can also mean we can sort of resolve problems as we go rather than kind of waiting and then another week passes. Speeds things up, makes things easier. There are a lot of tools to help you manage those data requests. I understand, like, we're in fundraising at the moment for our second venture debt fund. It's often quite annoying catering to investors' demands. You guys can use CFOs, finance teams, etc. to help that, but also online tools to make things easier. Third thing, why jump? I want some reason to jump off the cliff. Okay, I need something that tells me I'm going to look super cool. I'm going to do like a triple backflip or something. And the equivalent here is I want to see some growth. I want to see some potential, but I also want it to be believable. Okay, if you say that I'm going to do a triple backflip, I'm probably not going to believe you because I know I can't do a triple backflip. But here, effectively, the graph, we want to see maybe 3 cases that we would build ourselves if they're not available, but effectively a sort of upside, a base case, and a downside. So we obviously don't know how the macro is going to turn out in the future. So as a startup, being aware of like, okay, here's what happens if things go well, and here's what happens if another COVID happens and we have to close down for a few months or a year. So yeah, and tie it to data. That's how you make it believable. Unit economics, really the key. Like if you can build something based off unit economics, it's very believable. Bah, we're sheep. So here, the truth of venture debt is that we don't want to be the only money in the company. Generally, we want to be coming in alongside other investors or into a company that already has strong VC support. As I mentioned, don't just take debt and equity. And the reason why VCs are useful, A, good seal of approval on the business for future investors. They're a strong network for fundraising. And we can trust that in a downside scenario, VCs are the guys that will bail you out. It's generally speaking not the risk profile of venture debt to bail out a company that's dying. But as a VC, you're incentivized to help the company survive and potentially recover or make it to an exit rather than losing your whole stake. So VCs will generally do that, and they'll continue to support companies. So they're very good. Don't worry about being too selective. I'd say, like, from most perspectives, the difference between a VC that's hyper-focused on what you're doing and a generalist VC is not that big. The fact that you guys have VCs or investors is really better than nothing, always. And lastly, obviously, don't forget angel investors. This is where we are. Obviously, you have to get to the VC stage, and most VCs don't invest kind of pre-seed or at the idea stage. Angels are one of the best sources of funding for that. They're an incredibly useful information network. They can also often help you with business acumen and expertise in the industry and help you grow the business. So would encourage you to get them on board first. And yeah, I think that's the speech. I hope I haven't run over time. But yeah, any questions?
I suppose a lot of questions from the audience. So please, I want to encourage you to start talking about the venture debt right now and asking your questions, probably especially for startup founders.
I have a question. So we were in a term sheet discussion, and here we have a debt vehicle. It's not venture debt; it's unsecured debt. And what VCs presumably, like the potential investor, it's great that you don't have venture debt because it's attached to equity. So can you comment on that?
In what sense? You mean the warrants?
Why they were happy that we have the debt, not a venture debt?
So I'd say, okay, I think the point you're making is that if you took an unsecured loan from a bank, let's say.
It was not, it's like unsecured debt. It's like a venture debt, but without the equity part.
Yeah, okay, so I guess as I pointed out, there's two different ways to slice it. You can either do it with warrants or without. For us, we think the warrants are important because they what kind of differentiate you from a more traditional lender, and they align us with the upside. So if, let's say, the company gets into trouble and you don't have the warrants, well then really, like, there's no incentive for us to keep the company alive. We just want the money back, right? Like, financially, that's what makes sense. If we have the warrants, we do have that incentive. We're aligned with the VCs in that sense. So I mean, actually, like our main origination channel is through VCs, like VCs inviting us to come invest in their companies. And the reason for that is because, as mentioned, non-dilutive, so they're not getting diluted, which is a bonus. Like you obviously keep your investors happy, but also because we want to work with them, we're aligned with them on the upside. And I know the graph showing equity versus debt didn't look like debt improved that much, but if we're going from like a 1.2 to a 1.4 cash on cash multiple, it would matter in a significant upside. It would make a big difference for us. So yeah, it's really about aligning ourselves in a downside scenario and wanting to see the company grow rather than just being give us the money back. But there are two ways to cut it. Obviously, it's cheaper without the warrants.
Thank you.
How often does it happen that VCs come to you to broker the financing for their portfolio?
Yeah, so as I said, I'd say probably like 70% of our origination channels is through VCs. Obviously, I guess on the first slide I showed, like, we've been going since 2012. A lot of like the managing partners, et cetera, as well as the team members have strong relationships with VCs. So when they have a company that's in need of fundraising, they're often going to bring it to us and say, look, we're interested in getting some venture debt as part of an equity round. Maybe we're going to put in a bit more money, but we don't want to face this, see the dilution, basically, that would come with getting big new investors. Obviously, at the moment, equity valuations have sort of normalized versus where they were in 2021, 22. And if you look at the graph, it is normalized, not down. It's where it should be. But startups still have to sort of face the struggle of that. So yeah, often.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thanks so much, Tom.
Sounds good.